And now we are going to visit with the head of Facebook for Work. Facebook is an up-and-coming website that you might have heard of. So if you don't know about it, just go ahead and put that into Google, Facebook, and you'll learn a lot about it. Please welcome to the stage, bear with me, Julien Cordagnou and Josh Constein.
So you guys are charging for Facebook now. I thought you said you never do that.
Well, only for companies.
I'm kidding, I'm kidding. Yeah, no, this is all about your new enterprise collaboration product called Workplace, which is really fascinating. You're the director of, and this is actually a product you guys are building here in the UK, right?
Yes, it is. It's built and made and designed in London.
That must be really different because most of the core Facebook products are all built in Menlo Park in California. What is it like building a product so far away from the rest of the team?
Actually, it's fantastic for us because I think for the first time you have everyone who's working on Workplace, from the design team, the product managers, the engineers, the marketing team, the go-to-market team, the PR team, everyone is on the same floor in London on Regent's Place. So it feels like a startup inside Facebook.
That must be good, because at that size, it's hard to feel like you have that same cohesion as a team. And now, if you guys aren't exactly sure what Facebook Workplace is, it's a lot like the features you know and love from Facebook. There's the news feed, events, groups, messaging, and it basically lets you work with your team to work on big projects. It's a bit like Slack, but with a lot more features. Now, tell us a little bit, what's going on with the app? You guys, how's progress going? Last time we heard you had 1,000 teams using it. Where are you guys now?
Yes, so we officially launched Workplace 6 weeks ago in October. And we've been very pleased with the demand we've seen across many geographies, many industries. We are still catching up, to be honest, with the backlog of companies that reached out, that want to launch Workplace as fast as possible. 2 weeks ago, we launched a Vente Privée in France. We launched a Deliveroo in the UK last week. This week, I think we launched TBWA. It's a big advertising agency. Tomorrow, we are launching AirAsia, which is a big airline in Malaysia. And everyone at AirAsia, they have 20,000 employees, will be using Workplace, from the CEO to every crew of every flight. And I guess you've seen, but we also announced that the entire administration of Singapore will be using Workplace. And that's 150,000 people.
Wow, that's a huge amount of people to have all on one app. It must get a little bit chaotic.
Not really, because I think the surprise that we've had was to see that the same tools that we've built for 1.8 billion people, the newsfeed, groups, Messenger, when you adapt these tools to the workplace, to the enterprise, actually great things happen in terms of productivity. So instead of going to your inbox and look at emails in a chronological order, you look at the newsfeed, and we make sure that what's important for you, what's relevant for you, is always on top. So it's a very different way of working. And I think that what's unique about Workplace is that we want to connect everyone in the company, not just the white collars, but everyone from the CEO to people who never had a desk, never had a PC, or never had an email before. So I don't think of it as a productivity application. I think of it as a different way of running a company by giving everyone a voice.
That's really cool, because most companies, they're using, maybe just enterprise software for their executives or some of their, their tech and engineering team, not maybe their blue-collar workers. But when you open it up to that many people, do companies find that they're getting interesting new insights into their business, or hearing about ideas or suggestions, getting brainstorming ideas from the guy who's there after hours rather than just from the executives?
Yeah, exactly. That's the whole point. Changing the way the company works by giving everyone a voice, especially people who were not connected before, people who had no emails. And the big surprise for us was to see that the more connected an organization becomes, the more productive it becomes. And I think there was a gap in the market. No one was really addressing that market. People who've never been connected before in the workplace. And that's what we want to do with Workplace. And I think you can only do that when you have something that has the familiarity of Facebook, an application that 1.8 billion people use every month.
It must be a bit of a challenge, though, to convince companies that getting their employees on it doesn't mean that people are just going to be wasting time on the internet all day. Some companies are a little bit apprehensive, like, oh, you're just on Facebook the whole time, but this is very different. How do you convince them of that?
Well, first, we changed the name. The first name we had was Facebook at Work, which could have been misleading. The name we have now.
No, I don't want you to be using Facebook at work. That's the whole thing, right?
But Workplace by Facebook is just for you and your colleagues. It's using the same tools, the same applications that people use every day to communicate with their friends and their families, but with Workplace, it's just for you and your colleagues, the people you work with, the people you work for. And eventually now, since we launched multi-company groups, you can even use Workplace to communicate with your partners, your clients, your marketing agency. You just want to have the speed of innovation of consumer tech, but for your own internal enterprise-only use.
That's a cool anecdote that you guys wanted to change the name to make sure people didn't mistake it for just playing around on Facebook at work. Now, the one thing that I thought was lacking when you guys launched was a big developer platform. You had a few partner integrations for IT and security, like single sign-on and some enterprise security stuff. And there was a few companies like Deloitte and Edelman who could help big clients get on board. But you didn't have the kind of app platform that we're seeing with some of the other enterprise communication hubs like Slack. So you guys actually have something pretty big to announce right now, don't you?
Yeah, actually, we want to grow Workplace just like we've grown Facebook, by first building the network, driving adoption, driving retention, driving satisfaction, and then to build services on top of the network. So Facebook Live, for example, is something we adapted for Workplace and that we've added to Workplace, and that's something we built ourselves. The next step for us is to let any IT teams, any company using Workplace today, build applications on top of Workplace. So we launched custom integrations. That's the name of, I would say, that version 0.1 of platform. We launched it a few days ago, and we already see companies, internal IT teams, building apps on top of Workplace for their employees. But that's how we want to grow Workplace. But what's very important for us first is to drive adoption, retention, and engagement on the platform.
So this is basically, you guys didn't really say anything about this when you announced that, though. So this is the announcement that you guys now have a collaboration app platform as well. So what kind of big names that we might know and love in the enterprise space could we eventually see on Workplace's platform?
Yeah, once again, this is not an open platform for third-party applications. This is a platform that lets IT teams build apps for their employees. But we've seen companies connecting Workplace to their intranet so that the intranet can automatically publish into the newsfeed. We've seen a company in the Nordics building a cafeteria app on Workplace. So you can just say, hey, what's on the menu today at cafeteria? And then you will have a bot posting pictures of what's on the menu today inside the newsfeed directly. We've seen companies connecting Workplace to Salesforce and other internal tools that they use. So it's just the beginning. It's really week number 2 for us, but that was something that our users and our companies were expecting.
So in this version of the platform, companies themselves, their own IT department, basically creates connections between Workplace and the tools that they're already using from third-party developers, rather than those third-party developers building like a special version of their app that works with Workplace,
Yeah,
right?
Exactly.
Okay, so but with those integrations, I can imagine, would people be able to add things like file sharing or productivity apps, email, calendaring, that kind of stuff, CRM services? Is that the kind of stuff we could expect people to connect with via the new Workplace platform?
Absolutely, they can absolutely do that. Whatever you're using internally, you can connect Workplace to these applications and provide a great experience to your users. Don't forget that when we deploy Workplace, because we have adoption, because we have retention and engagement, it becomes the homepage of the company. That's the place where people go back to every day, many times a day, on the web, on mobile, and it becomes de facto a discovery and a distribution platform for internal apps or applications that you're using every day to get the job done.
Now, is this something that Facebook wants to eventually get a cut of, the way that third-party tools build into Workplace?
No, I mean, right now, as I said, the ambition we have is to become an amazing distribution and discovery platform for apps that you build yourselves for you and your teams.
So that's very different than, say, trying to run an app store and have get some kind of cut on the licenses that these companies are already paying to other service providers like Microsoft for some versions of Outlook or their other Office software or Dropbox, for instance.
Yeah,
great.
Exactly.
But long term, how do you see the platform evolving? Is this something that you want to keep just for IT teams to be able to customize, or do you imagine there being more like a more public-facing version of this platform?
No, it's a long journey. As you said, we started by connecting Workplace to the top IDP vendors on the market: Okta, OneLogin, Microsoft, Google, Ping. Then we built the Workplace Partner Program. We identify recruited services companies like Deloitte, TBWA, Service Rocket, L&T Infotech, CSC, that can bring Workplace to their clients and to our clients. And now, step 3 is to let IT teams that are using Workplace build their own apps on top of the platform.
Great. Well, Sarah Burr, who's out there covering this for TechCrunch, just make sure that we say that it's the IT teams that are building this, not the developers themselves. Now, looking forward, one big thing that I think is important when it comes to enterprise software is the ability to really find what you've already done in terms of work. Searchability is a big question, but it's one thing to have searchability in a normal enterprise piece of software, or say in the news feed of Facebook Workplace. But what about for the Workplace Messenger? Do you think that Workplace chat conversations should always be searchable?
I don't know, it's really a different use case. The product inside Workplace that people use the most is groups. So you basically have a group for every mailing list of the company, for every newsletter. I mean, everyone wants to escape from mailing lists, newsletters, reply alls, intranets that no one are using, or intranets that do not work on mobile, and groups are just perfect for that. So if you need your team to review a document or your team to brainstorm on something that will take time, you're going to use groups for that. If you need,
and that's all searchable, right?
It is.
Great.
If you need an immediate response from someone from your team, you're going to use WorkChat for that, which is our chat app, the equivalent of Messenger in the world of Workplace. So it's two different use cases.
Do you guys have searchability in WorkChat?
No, I don't think we have.
Do you think that that's something that you want to add? And could you weigh maybe the privacy or sort of chilling effects on conversation and people being able to freely voice their ideas versus the utility of being able to bring up any of those old conversations?
Why not? But I think the real value of Workplace and groups is that you have the entire history of the company. I mean, when you join the company that is using Workplace, you just have to go back to the groups. You just have to join the groups and join the groups that your manager is part of or your teams are part of, and then you have the entire context. It can go back years. If in the case of Facebook, we've been using it for many years now. I think the real value of the product in having that context and that history. So yes, it has to be searchable.
Now, the Workplace is an amazing app communication, but my worry is that it almost might be too good at communication. When people are working and trying to get into a state of flow, when they're really productive and they don't get distracted, and then suddenly they're getting pings from work chat, rather than maybe looking at an email when they're done with whatever piece of work that they're doing, that could interrupt them. Are you guys hearing that is a problem from the clients of Workplace?
No, it's not, because the newsfeed is made for that. You don't have to be on the newsfeed every second, right? You don't have to refresh the newsfeed. It will be always refreshed for you. And we will give you the guarantee that what you will see there will be the most relevant or important things for you. So in a way, you can prioritize by just looking at the newsfeed and get first the latest post from your CEO, from the people you work with, the people who work for you, or someone that is in a different team that is very important for you. So in a way, that prioritization of work already happens in the newsfeed. And that's thanks to the algorithm we have.
But when it comes to work chat, it can still interrupt people. If somebody wants to quickly ask someone something, we're so used to being so social and messaging people so frequently on Facebook Messenger. It already has 1 billion users. Does that ever lend itself to people interrupting each other? And
it can happen, but I think you need to set the rules and to set the tone when you deploy a tool like Workplace.
So you think that that's up to the companies to set up rules and sort of a workplace culture around Workplace, or is that something that you think Facebook should be doing more guidance on?
No, we're looking at building things that can help people to say when they are available or not. But I think at the end of the day, you want to let the users choose what's right for them. Some people love messaging apps. Some people would prefer groups. So I think it's better to let the users choose for themselves.
Does that mean you guys are going to build sort of a do not disturb feature so you could say, like, I'm technically online, but please don't message me right this moment? Or maybe
I don't know if it's going to be called or if it will look like that, but that's something we're looking at.
Yeah, because I think that's a big issue. I know that Slack has encountered this Slacklash, where companies have actually found their employees being so chatty that they're not being productive anymore. They're just sharing animated GIFs and talking about random stuff like it's a water cooler where they never have to leave their desk to go to. And companies like Uber have even dropped Slack for it becoming a bit too chaotic for all their employees. Is that something that you guys are worried about? And how do you guys make sure that over time that people stay productive with with the app rather than it falling into that fear that Facebook is just for playing around.
I think what you're describing here is the use case of a messaging app on desktop. Most of the people who use Workplace use it in a mobile first or in a mobile only scenario. So if you don't want to be disturbed, just don't look at your phone, right? But that's the real people using Workplace. That's people who've never been connected before, who will be connected for the first time with something that is easy to use and mobile first and mobile only. So you can set the rules for yourself.
Well, that brings up another question, which is if it's so mobile-based, people can bring their work home with them. And that means that to some degree, work never stops, which I don't think is necessarily the most productive way or the most enjoyable way to live. So are you guys doing anything around that to make sure that people don't feel obligated to respond to work chat messages even when it's 10 p.m. and they might be trying to go to bed?
Yeah, you can set, of course, your notification settings yourself, but you can also define your own work-life balances rules with your team and your colleagues. So once again, I think it's up to the users to manage that. And we give them the options to do that.
You guys have features that allow people to say, like, any messages that go after 9 p.m. don't send notifications, like for the whole team?
It's not that sophisticated, but we have notification settings that people can play with.
Is that something you guys want to build more on in the future to make sure that people can maintain that work-life balance while still getting the benefits of Workplace?
It's something we're thinking about, but it's not a priority right now.
All right. So long term, what are you guys trying to do for making sure that chat stays productive? You know, there's some apps like Slack, they're really focused around things like animated GIFs, which sure are a way to express yourself, but they're also pretty distracting. You know, do you see yourself as being a place where work culture happens or just where work happens?
As we discussed, I think Workplace is really not another productivity app. It's a different way of running the company. It changes the culture of the companies who deployed it. And we think of it as a communications platform, not as an enterprise social network, not as a messaging app. And I think it's a very different use case. And once again, I think it's the only tool that connects everyone in the company. So it creates different discussions.
What about your team? Do you guys work like all hours using Workplace?
Well, I do because I have teams, on 3 continents. But yeah, you could not take it back, obviously, from Facebook, and we also love to hear that from our customers. It becomes your main communication tool once you've deployed it.
Now, I've seen that some other apps like Slack have actually created entire funds to push a developer ecosystem, which for them creates a sort of moat where it's one thing to copy someone's features, but it's hard to copy their developer ecosystem. You know, is Facebook doing anything around that idea, like funding apps that build well or work well with Workplace?
No, because first, we don't have a platform for that. And second, because our obsession is to connect everyone in the company, even people who had nothing before. When I talk to the leadership team at Oxfam or Save the Children or Danone, companies where we launch Workplace, the leadership team is not obsessed just right now with the Workday or the SAP integration. What they want is to deploy software that people will actually use and love to use. And that's our ambition. We want to build software that people will love to use. So that's the priority. Go back to adoption, retention, engagement.
Now, I don't want to derail the conversation to talk about this, but it's such a big issue that I'd be remiss not to mention it. Fake news has become a big issue of controversy on Facebook. In terms of Workplace, do you guys do anything around sort of censoring or at least just limiting or restricting what people can and can't post in the newsfeed? Or do you empower companies to be able to set any limits around that stuff?
No, on Workplace, the company owns the data. They create the content themselves. They moderate the content themselves. So it's a very different situation. So if you don't like what's in a group, you can leave the group, for example. Or if you don't like the content from the people you follow, you just have to unfollow them.
Now, you've seen a lot of groups that probably sprung up on Facebook itself, before Workplace developed. Do you guys have any plans to help people migrate those kind of groups onto Workplace, or have you been working on that already?
Not really, but it was a signal. We knew that thousands of companies were already using Facebook for work, and a lot of companies and CIOs reached out to us asking us to build Facebook for the workplace, deeply integrated into their IT systems to control the content, but also who's there. You don't want a former employee to still have access to the content. So it was one of the signals that we got that led us to deploy and to develop Workplace.
Great. So I've been really impressed to see how fast you guys are moving with this and trying to develop as quickly as you can. You're constantly adding new companies. You've got your new, version 0.1, you said, of the developer platform where IT teams can build integrations with all sorts of SaaS apps like, email, calendaring, productivity, CRM, file sharing. And you guys are looking into. It's great to hear that you guys acknowledge that there can be problems with being distracted, because I think some other work chat apps try to just sort of skirt around that issue. But I hope to see you guys build more features in the future that allow people to stay as in communication and unite their whole company, which is really what the mission of Facebook has always been about, is connecting people, but without making it so we never feel like we can really get into flow and stay concentrated.
Absolutely.
So thank you so much for talking with us about this.
My pleasure. Thank
Cheers.
you, Josh.